Alright, so again, shoulders rolled back. Try to have good posture. And let your skeletal system do most of the work because you don't want to wear out your muscles. There it is. And there is our bow drill fire. Hi friends, hey, welcome back to the Expeditionary Johnny channel. Hey, today's video is for a new friend. I just met the Virginia Bushcrafter. Seems like a really nice gentleman. He's getting outdoors. One of the things he mentioned the other day is he would like to learn bow drill. All right, so let's start with step number one, material. For me, what do I recommend? I recommend you go to the store. Go to the hardware store, get yourself a piece of cedar. The reason I like going to buy store-bought materials is it's done a lot of the work for you. You can concentrate on learning the properties of the wood. This is nice and soft, and so you'll be able to get nice ash and produce enough heat to get you a nice hot ember. So go ahead and get this. Once you learn what properties, what the wood needs to look like, then you'll start recognizing it out in the woods. Even if you don't know what type of tree it is, you'll go look at it and like, that's what I'm looking for. Next, number two, you need a bow. Not a big deal. Just go out and get a piece of wood, I'd say about from your hand to your armpit's length. You want something nice and long so that you'll do less and less strokes. And it's like when you do one push, that spindle is going to turn several times, all right? If you do a nice short one, well, you're going to have to be moving a lot. And until you get the technique down, that's going to wear yourself out, okay? Okay, number three, the hand block. All right. Typically, you want your hand block to be harder than the material for your spindle, okay? Because that is where you're going to be pushing down and applying pressure. Not a lot, but a little bit. And so you don't want to actually be trying to burn too far into your hand block. Now, for a beginner, what do I recommend? Go to the hardware store. Go get you a little grommet, and that way it's like you can just put that inside your hand block, and then it's friction free. It's one less thing to worry about while you're working on your technique. Now, once you get that down, then you'll be able to start with a regular piece of wood with no grommet, no tricks, and you'll be able to go ahead and get your ember going. All right, next thing is your bird's nest material. Practice with flint and steel. Practice, or with a ferro rod, something where you got char, when there's char cloth, or just punk wood that you've made into charred wood. Get proficient at making a fire out of that, because when you do get that first ember, you might panic, so if you're already comfortable with the idea of putting that coal in there and letting it smolder for a while, you're going to be better off, because quite honestly, once you get that ember, you need to give it a moment to coalesce, so you got time. All right, before I start cutting off this wood, I want you to take a look at this. I've got a knot right here, right? Just because this thing is store-bought doesn't mean it's ready to go. This thing is going to cause me problems just as if I would have harvested out in nature. So I'm going to go ahead and make a cut here, and then we're going to go ahead and cut it again to get our hearthboard and spindle. All right, as a general rule of thumb, you want to make your spindle, I don't know, probably at least as wide as your hand. A little bit longer is okay, because at first you're going to be burning through material, and so you want a little bit of extra room to work with. Not a problem. So I'll go ahead and cut this down. A rule of thumb for the size of the spindle is you want your spindle about the size, the diameter of your thumb. So I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to split this right in half, and then we're going to whittle it down. All right, 2 pieces of wood ready to become spindles. Okay, and from here it's just working on our whittling skills. We just take our knife. We're going to go ahead and round out the corners, okay? Just start rounding it out and make the thing like a cylinder. and then we'll work on making the tips here in a minute. All right, so let's just go ahead and get that whittled down. Okay, so we've rounded this out. It's not perfectly round. It's pretty straight. It's definitely good enough to work with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one end and I'm going to whittle it down to more of a pencil shape. You know, it's like when you're writing with your pencil, you always have a point. Now we're going to be putting pressure on this thing when we're making the bow drill, so you don't have to make it a super fine point, but do give it do make sure it's kind of gradual enough, because it's going to wear down a little bit, so you don't want it to get too fat too quickly. Okay, so we're just going to whittle this down a little bit. Okay, matter of fact, that works for me. That looks pretty good to me. Now the other end, we're just going to kind of round it off here like so, because this is going to be the part that touches the hearth board, this fat end. And this is where we're going to be building up the friction, the heat, a pile of ash. And we don't want it perfectly round. Matter of fact, we want it kind of a tip, kind of like that. See right here? I'm going to allow this to rest into our hearth board when we get the thing seated. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next step. Okay, so here's the part that I used to worry about, but now I'm going to ask you to just relax, and think about this as not really that big a deal. Easier said than done, I know. All right, so I've just got a regular hand block. I harvest this from a down mulberry tree, just nice hard, cut off the branch, smoothed it out a little bit on the bottom. I like my hand block thick enough to get my hand around here where I'm not too close to the tip where it gets real hot. And you just make a small little notch in there. Okay, don't spend too much time worrying about your bow. So let's just go to this one. It's real basic. It's got a branch on here to set up our bow. You just make like a fixed loop, like a bowline knot, put it there. Come down to the other end here and you see I've kind of carved out a little notch. We just kind of reverse wrap things. It's like we feed our line back through that, like so. And then we just wrap it around. You don't have to do a fancy knot down here. You're just going to have your hand down here, and then I'm going to be bowing like this. No big deal. For our hearth board, all right, so this is our cedar. See how thick this thing is? So this will be plenty thick for me to build up plenty of ash without burning right through it. To prep it, we take our knife. Let's see, right about here, just gonna make a little divot. That's all you really need to do. Okay, we take our spindle. See, I've already got our tip. This part goes up here into our hand block. See, because I'm going to be pushing down, it's going to round that out. But fortunately, I've tapered it off, so we have plenty of room to push it down. To prepare it, all right, to get going, what we're going to do is take our spindle, take the fat end, see this fat rounded end, point that up, take that on the inside of our bow, and wrap it around. Just do a twist like so, and then we wrap it back to our hand and hold it like that. All right, now we're going to do what you call a burn in. This is where I'm not going to go very hard. I'm just going to get this to seat into the hearth board. You get the spindle to seat into the hearth board, and it's going to smoke a little bit. I'm going to build up a little bit of ash. Once I get that set, then I'll make our notch. All right, so as far as lubrication, a little saliva goes a long way. That works fine. Here's the key. Stance. Get down on a knee. I roll my shoulders back. I got my hand against my shin so it doesn't wobble. I use my skeletal frame. And I'm just going to bow lightly back and forth. Really don't have to put any pressure. And I'm going to get the spindle to heat up the hearth board. Actually, they're going to heat up each other. And you see, the longer the stroke I go, the more revolutions I get, the faster I'm going to build up some heat. I'm not pushing down hardly at all. And I'm not really trying at all. See that smoke? It's working really well. Hardly made a dent in this. See, it kind of rounded my tip up here, so I'll straighten that up a little bit. Here I've got a little burn in with some ash. So I want to gather up that ash, and now we're going to work on our notch. Okay, time to make the notch. And this is why I chose to go with the Farmer Swiss Army knife. I specifically wanted this saw. Alright, just in case I ever have to make a bow drill, I like to have a saw to make my notch. So let's go ahead and make that notch. So go ahead and just start making. I always start in the middle, trying to get this thing lined up. Okay, now I don't want to get all the way to the center. If I do, I'm going to make my hole a little too weak and my spindle will pop out. So this will be good enough for now. And I'm going to start like making a pie wedge, and I'm going to bevel it out, making it wider underneath here. See how it gets wider on the way out here? And then same thing over here. Now we pull out our knife and we kind of clean it up a little bit. Okay, that's pretty good. That's as far as I wanted to go in the center. Now what I want to do is kind of clean up out here on the outside, or at least on the bottom. I really want to make room for oxygen to flow down here at the bottom, okay? Now to increase efficiency, I'm going to bevel it out some more, right along here. I really want to encourage that oxygen to get up there. Now, I'm also going to help oxygen right, whoop, not on here, right along down here at the bottom. And that should do it. All right. Okay, so we've got our spindle. Let's go ahead and clean that up again. This it's not very polished, but a lot of times what you'll want to do is take your knife, kind of clean that up a little bit. And if you have any rough edges, that's okay. That helps with the friction. That's fine. Our point is kind of worn down a little bit, so I'm going to clean that up just a little bit. Not too much, because that point's going to come down anyway, right? You'll notice I'm on my porch. I'm not trying to make this bushcrafty at all. This is about learning how to bow drill, not making a bow drill in a survival situation. This is just to remove those obstacles so you kind of get the fundamentals, and then from there you can work on doing it all out in the woods. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. We got our bow. Fat side up, put it on the inside, give it a spin. Walk it back. Take our hand block, lubricate it a little bit. That's just fine. Now we're going to go ahead and start turning and burning. I'll try to do it at an angle where you can kind of see my body. Alright, so again, shoulders rolled back. Try to have good posture. And let your skeletal system do most of the work, because you don't want to wear out your muscles. Now be patient. This is a nice and soft wood. Let it build up some ash before you start going for it. You'll go for it at the end where you really want to increase the heat to get the ember to ignite. And even though there are some dudes that really go at it, they can get an ember in 20-30 seconds. I've done that. Don't worry about that. Right now, take your time. And I want to succeed for you, so I'm going to build up a fair amount of ash before I really go at it. See that good smoke? It's getting warm. Pick up the pace a little bit. I probably could have stopped sooner, but I wanted to make sure it's successful on this videotape. I can see I've got a nice good ember going. To remove it, just take your spindle, tap your hearth. And see, I've got this little ember, it's smoking. Let's just go ahead and save that ash, that dust there. Put that off to the side. Now see, I'm not worried about that. I'm going to let that ash coalesce, let it come together. See this wood block? Nice and hard. It hardly went inside there and made an additional dent. This, if you find a nice hard piece of wood, I don't worry about this too much. Just don't go for anything soft. If you do, make sure it's nice and resinous, like pine or whatever. Now, for learning, I always, I just use a piece of aluminum foil. You can carry that with you. Or if you're out doing survival, you're going to grab a leaf, some of the chips, the shavings off your spindle or hearth board. You'll grab something to capture the dust. Alright, so now it's kind of like flint and steel, or I don't know, any char material type fire. We just take our coal and put it in our bird's nest. There we go. We're going to let that warm it up. Go ahead and make a taco. While that warms up, I will say here's where I differ from what a lot of people do with their jute twine when they're doing a flint and steel. And let's say for a Fired Up Friday, they're doing it for fun. They're just getting flame. If you're doing this to actually make a fire, you need enough bird's nest, enough material, enough small, fine stuff. You need enough bigger stuff for it to flame up long enough to actually get your wood to light up, okay? But if you're just doing it for fun, in my mind, if you're just getting a rip in and you just want a coal, that's a win. If you want to at least establish flame, just a little ball of jute twine to get a fire, that's also a win. Now I have good materials here. I do recommend keeping some good dry tinder around just so you can practice whenever you feel like it. I hear it crackling in there. It'll go up soon. There it is. And there is our bow drill fire. And depending on how you make your bird's nest, you can hold it for a while. I tried to choose material. This is some grass and this is some inner bark from cottonwood and stuff. But you can see it might go out if we're not careful. So you have to lift it up a little bit to keep getting it going. That's something to be mindful of when you're actually trying to get a fire going out in the woods. Don't rush it. Watch it. Be prepared to make a little adjustment. See how you have to do that? I mean, this is still not too terribly hot. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I put my hand right in it, it's going to burn. But you can see I can play around with it to get that to flame some more. So get familiar with how fire works. Alright, there we go, Virginia Bushcraft. That's how you do a bow drill fire. Or at least, that's how I recommend your first steps to learning bow drill, okay? From there, we can work on that, you know, going out in the woods and getting natural materials and you know, just, and then challenge yourself more and more under bad conditions. Can you do it in what it's called and wet? But so there you go. Hey, I hope everybody enjoyed that. And if you got any tips on how to do it better way to teach it, a better way for me to even do it, let me know. Otherwise, take care and you guys have a great week.